Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Talk Your Abs Off. This is a very special episode today because we are putting out this episode on the International Day of Yoga. And I am joined today by a friend and colleague, Dani. I'm excited to have Dani on the show today. Dani is also a yoga instructor. She is a 200-hour registered yoga teacher like myself, and she's been teaching for a little over 10 years. So she has many more years than I do teaching. And I got to meet her. We both teach yoga at the same facility. And so I've gotten to know Dani and thought it would be fun for two yoga teachers to hop on and talk about the benefits of yoga and the importance of yoga if that's something that you've been wanting to try, something you want to look into for your own fitness journey. So Dani, tell me a little bit about yourself.
My journey to yoga was interesting. It was unique, I would say. I started in yoga, but way back when I was young, 17 years old. I was introduced to meditation, Buddhism, and yoga through the military when I was in boot camp. One of my fellow comrades there got me into it, but I had such a hard time focusing. In my opinion, it was not for me. I was high impact, high. I liked to box. I just was super high energy and needed all of that in my life. Played every sport I could possibly get my hands into, and then got older in life and discovered Bikram. Someone got me into Bikram, which was just like, oh yeah, I can do this, because I was so high, like bodybuilding, boxing. I had lots of injuries. So a lot of things I couldn't do anymore that I wanted to do. So Bikram was like this power yoga that took me to extremes that I had never really experienced in traditional sports. And that like sunk its teeth into me, and I was hooked. And then got older, you know how that goes, and couldn't not that I couldn't, but I didn't feel as comfortable doing so many of the poses and the heat, and just wanted to kind of back away and kind of lessen that intensity. So I'm skipping all over the place here, but that's kind of what started it, and where I began with it all.
That's incredible. And that's the beauty of yoga, right? Is it kind of meets you where you're at. So you had the Bikram yoga when you needed Bikram, and then you lowered the intensity when you needed the lower intensity. And that's the beauty of it. I think a lot of people, and we're going to go into the different types of yoga, but some people might look at hot yoga or power yoga and think there's no way that I could ever do that. When in reality, like, there are other types of yoga. Every instructor is different. So there's so many options to do yoga, and so many benefits too that come along with it.
Absolutely.
So how did you become a yoga instructor? When did you do that? What led you to becoming an instructor?
Several different things. So just life, really. Life kind of got me there. I had dabbled in it with some different spiritual groups that I had visited for a few different times in my life, and had dabbled in teaching then. And I went to a music festival, and they started it with yoga, and I wanted to do that. I wanted to make other people feel the way I felt that day, and that's what I got goosebumps right now. But that was that switch.
That turning point that really inspired you to want to make other, like you said, other people feel that way, and you could do it yourself.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. That's so fun. And I think every yoga teacher's journey is different, right? So I'll share a little bit about my own background. So I worked 8 years in corporate wellness. So I was managing fitness centers within corporations, running the fitness centers for businesses. And it was during COVID. So it was during the pandemic. And I was looking for stuff to do, honestly. And I was like, well, if I'm gonna, I always want to get new certifications. I always want to stay up and continue education, things like that. And I thought, well, what the heck? My company pays for a significant portion of new certifications that we get. I think I'm just going to go for yoga. And because it was COVID, I couldn't do it in person. So my 200-hour yoga certification was done 100% online. I had to record teaching poses. I had to do a lot of, written homework too on the different, types of breathing, different meditations, different all the different poses, things like that. So it was still pretty intensive, but I got to do it from the comfort of my home, where a lot of people have to travel to a studio, or some people even go to India to learn, their yoga. So that's just a little bit of my background. I've only been teaching for about 3 years, but similar to what you said, the feeling that you get as an instructor when you finish the class and everyone around you is just feeling really good, whether it's their energy, their body, it's just so, so fulfilling and so rewarding.
Bliss. It's blissed out. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%.
Yep.
So, okay, so you did mention Bikram yoga, and I want to, for the listeners who might not know that there's all these different kinds of yoga, I want to go through and just do a short little kind of definition of each type of yoga, and I'm going to leave that to you because you're probably a little bit more eloquent at explaining the different types of yoga. So let's start with Bikram first, since you mentioned that one
Okay.
already.
Well, Bikram is a specific yoga flow of 26 poses. It's done in heated environment. So it's very specific. You don't there's no creativity in it, so that sometimes can be a double-edged sword. So some people really feel like that's how they get to express themselves, where some people feel like I want to check out and just doop 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 doop. So there's beauty in that.
I'll hop in really quick with hatha. So I can explain hatha because that's my favorite type of class to teach. It's really the only class that I do teach unless someone asks for a vinyasa, which I'll have you cover next. So the hatha class, from my understanding of it, and you can, add to it, correct me if I'm wrong, it focuses a lot more on the stretching and the breath. So it's slower. It doesn't necessarily do as much, sun salutation, up down movement as the vinyasa. So from my understanding, it's a little bit slower. What is your take on it?
Yep, I would say hatha. I just always tell everyone hatha, you're matching your breath to movement. So
Mm-hmm.
your inhale, is your lengthening. Your exhale is your sinking into the pose, or just taking that a little bit deeper. So hatha is beautiful. I love you
Mm-hmm.
can set the pace however you want.
Mine is slow. My pace is slow because I don't like to sweat when I do yoga. So Bikram, not for me. Hatha, 100% for me. In all my classes, I say this is a slow class because I don't like to sweat. So I hope you just like to take a nice slow stretch and breathe with it, because that's what we're going to do.
Absolutely. And if you're matching your breath to movement, then it's accessible to anyone.
100%. Yeah. So then what does vinyasa look like?
So vinyasa is a flow. I couldn't tell you how many poses that is right off the top of my head, because it's just autopilot, I think, at this point. The beauty in that, though, is that you are hitting every joint, every muscle, everything. It's a full body experience from head to toe, and you can add things into it. So when you get to down dog, it doesn't have to end there. You can go into your warriors or whatever straddle, anything like that is speaking to you in that moment.
That's amazing. So what about Ashtanga?
So Ashtanga, very similar, I think, to yoga, or to hatha rather. But you also have it's a series of poses that go, and it's done specifically to align the body and your mind as well. So there's not like a creativity with that. It's done specific in a row, so that this is connected to this and this is connected to this. If that makes sense.
Okay, interesting. I like that. So it has like a structure.
Yes.
Okay, so then what I think there's three left that I really want to touch on. These are like the major ones I think that most people would kind of maybe see on their studio's yoga schedule. What about restorative?
Oh, restorative is so underappreciated. Everyone needs restorative. Even that 18-year-old self of me that was like, I so needed restorative. Like, it is the counterculture experience to the chaos in today's world. It is just
Mm.
that beautiful passive release, and absolutely anyone can do it. And you can kind of do it anywhere. You don't need any special anything for it, although the props are so yummy.
The props are helpful. They can be very helpful, but totally not necessary if they're not accessible. And then what about yin? And yin is, I think link that to restorative a little bit. I love a yin class. So go ahead, take it away with what yin
Oh,
is.
yin is just yummy goodness. So yin is, you can get as creative as you want with yin. I love when we match a vinyasa to a yin and do
Ooh.
just kick your butt for the first little bit, and then just just bliss out and gooey, ooey gooey goodness. Yes. And having an assisted yin where you're,
Oh.
oh, it's,
Mm.
yes.
For yin, it's you're holding the poses for between like 2 and 5
Yes.
minutes. That's correct,
Yes.
right?
I
Okay.
think it was
I
taught
took
1 to 6 at one point, but 2 to 5 works.
2 to 5. Yeah, I love that, and honestly, when I do teach restorative, it kind of ends up being more of a yin class because we're holding those deeper poses a little bit longer. I took my first one. It was kind of a silent disco type thing, so we all had headphones on, and there was like we were in a park, and we all brought our yoga mats, and there was a DJ playing, some really nice music to go along, match the mood while the instructor taught. We heard it through the headphones. And you mean in the Florida, I was probably in the springtime, so it was just the beautiful weather. It was down by St. Pete Pier, so it was beautiful, beautiful scenery. And it was just, I will never forget that yin class as my first one. I will never forget it.
Oh, I love that for you. And I love that you just mentioned in the park because we just talked about all these different styles of yoga. Well, there's still one more.
There is one more, and it's Kundalini.
Yes. Kundalini is a yummy, sexy kind of yoga. It's a lot to do with your spine. It's a lot to do with your root chakra and your feminine energy and
Mm,
connecting to that. So you'll see a lot of serpent like movement in Kundalini, a lot of breath work,
okay.
ton of breath work too.
Interesting. That's the one that I probably know the least amount about, so I'm glad that you kind of explained that a little bit. That's helpful.
It's just experience it once.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out for sure. That's amazing. Now, let's say the people in my audience that they want to, now maybe that we've explained the different types of yoga, they say, great, I want to try a vinyasa class. How can someone find the right teacher or class for them?
Ooh, experiencing it because you can talk to somebody and it's going to sound like it's going to work, but you have to be in that class, and it's sometimes it's a day too. Like sometimes I'm in an all Danny mood, and then I get there and I'm like, oh, I should have So it really is where you are in that moment. And sometimes if you have a teacher, like there's times you're going to have a teacher like, nope, that just didn't work. And then there's sometimes that you have a teacher that was like, no, I didn't dig it. But then maybe give that one a second chance on a different day.
Yeah. I would agree to that. And I think too, especially if you're someone who's never done yoga before, or you've done it a little bit and just are trying to get into it, like Danny said, experiencing many different instructors. If you find one and you were turned off by that experience, that is not all yoga. That is, maybe it was the way that the teacher taught. Everyone learns differently, right? So let's say, people who take my class might not take Danny's class, or vice versa. We both have our, people who, well, it's also time of day. You teach at night, I teach in the afternoon. So that's another big piece of it. But, all yoga teachers are not made the same. We bring a little bit of our own creativity and our own personality into it. So giving other instructors a try is not a bad thing. And finding what you like and finding what you don't like. I think it's similar to if you're looking for a personal trainer, right? So you're not going to jive with every personal trainer. Some are like boot camp instructors or like the military, and some are a little bit easier on you and just, want you to enjoy the experience, have fun, and, kind of take it as you will.
Exactly. Which is why you should experience them because your day is different. You might want to just bliss out to some restorative or yin, or you might need to had a bad day on the road and need to get some energy out. So, you know, so
Yeah.
I some people, and you'll see in yoga, that everything, you tend to gravitate towards the same thing. You tend to gravitate towards the same space. Real estate and yoga classes, everything. And to
Hmm.
gravitate to the same teacher, but maybe gravitate to the same teacher for how you want to feel. Like
Mm.
what do you want to walk away? What is the desired result? So then gravitate to that teacher for that, because we're all of us are going to give you a different experience, and you're
Yeah.
going to walk away from it every day feeling a little bit different. Really.
Yeah, I like that. I like that piece of encouragement. I will say when I first started doing yoga, so it was before 2020, I've taken yoga classes here and there, but I don't remember. I don't think it was during COVID. It was a little bit before then, but on YouTube, And I know that so many of my listeners are going to resonate with this. Yoga with Adrienne. Dani, have you heard of
Yes,
her?
yes.
Yes. She is really what inspired me to start because she was so accessible, number one, inclusive, number two. She always found something that you can do and gave you the options of if you can't do this, totally okay, do this instead. And so if you're someone who's never taken yoga before and you don't necessarily even, you're maybe afraid to go to a studio, Yoga with Adrienne is a really good place to start. She is just, and her dog is always in it with her too, which is super cute. But it's just a very beginner friendly, welcoming environment. And that's what got me started. And then, I got more into it and just found differences, found things that I could do that, even just going out into a studio feels different than doing it at your home, being around other people who are doing the same thing as you. What do you think,
That
Dani?
group energy is everything. That group
Mm-hmm.
energy is absolutely everything. And I think that's probably one of the most fulfilling things about a teacher is coming
Mm-hmm.
in and feeling that it's popcorn. You know what I mean? It's
Mm-hmm.
you're in the room and everybody they're chatting or they're doing whatever, and then at the end they all leave and they're like, it's like
Yes, that
collective
sigh of
sigh.
relief. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, the community aspect is really big too. I think the community aspect in a lot of ways in our life, we need that. We crave that as people. We need that community, and especially with in an exercise environment too. Whether it's yoga or group exercise classes, there is something really special about doing something hard with other people, right?
Right. And I love that you just brought that up too, because you can take from the people around you in your practice, if you, especially if you're struggling in a pose trying to find that sweet spot, the modification sweet
Mm-hmm.
spot. Like I'm human, so I only have access to so many words in that moment. And I
Yep.
might not be resonating with you, and then I get stuck, and you're stuck, but then all you have to do is bounce your gaze and go, oh my goodness, look at what she's doing over there. I'm going to try that, and it's perfect,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah,
you wouldn't have had that if you weren't in the class itself, And there's
exactly.
just something to be said about that group energy,
100%. Yeah. Well, shifting the focus just a little bit, if someone wanted to do yoga and maybe that's all they want to do, like they don't want to take any other classes, they don't want to do any other, strength training, weightlifting, anything like that, is there a benefit to just doing yoga throughout the week? Is there benefits for weight loss, strength training, or cardio within yoga?
Absolutely, absolutely. For yoga is pretty much focused on your core, so you're going to be doing some strength training, even if you don't want to. It's happening, And weight loss. Oh my gosh, yes. During yoga, during a flow, you're burning like 400 calories in that.
Mhm.
It is a underestimated output of energy that you experience there. The cardio,
Yeah,
it's breath work. So you are totally enhancing your cardio. So
reaping the cardio
you
benefits.
you
Yeah.
could do just the same, almost, maybe not restorative. I don't think that
Mhm.
you couldn't tie restorative into that, only doing restorative all week and having the same
Mhm.
benefits. But you would still build cardio because it's still breath work. You're still going to be building some weight loss and strength in the poses themselves. It's just not going to be as quick of a result as other types of yoga.
Right. Well, it's even like I was talking about when I teach my hatha classes, right? I don't like to sweat. So coming to my hatha class is definitely going to be more of a restorative thing, right? So that's again where you find the right class, the right instructor. But going through, a vinyasa and ashtanga classes like that, where you are sweating, and as you're going through your sun salutations, which is just it's a sequence of different poses that gets you standing up to coming down to moving into different poses. And as you come through like your chaturanga, I think of that, which for those of you who don't know what a chaturanga is, if you start in a high plank, and then you slowly lower yourself down, chest down to the floor. You can drop to your knees first, but that's really working the
Reverse,
muscles in the shoulders,
like a reverse.
in the triceps.
Yeah.
Reverse push-up. Yes, that's a really good way to describe it. Yeah. And then even doing the different warrior poses, if you hold it long enough, those muscles in your legs start to shake. So
Yep.
yeah. So I think that there are definitely a lot of those benefits as well. And planning out, because as we talk about building an exercise routine, planning out a week that does include your restorative classes, right? Because we do need rest days. Even if it's an active recovery, those restorative classes have so much benefit to let our bodies rest, relax, recover those muscles that we've been using during the week. So, maybe planning it out, having two harder classes during the week, and then following it up on the third day with a restorative class, and then going back to some harder classes, and just finding a routine and a schedule that works for you and your body.
Perfect. Yes.
Yeah. So I think this is a really common question, and I've struggled with it when I first started doing yoga before I took my yoga teacher training. But if someone has, if someone is struggling to quote unquote quiet their mind or focus on their breath, what kind of recommendations do you have for people who might experience
Do you
that?
mean in meditation or in their yoga practice itself?
I would say in the yoga practice itself.
Just keep moving, just move to the next pose and then the pose after
Mhm.
that. And eventually it'll align. And maybe ask yourself, like, why am I being plagued with all this, well, all these thoughts? Am I supposed to use this time to filter through all that? Or
Mm.
am I struggling? Because
Mhm.
sometimes you all you needed was a little bit of quiet time to filter through some thoughts to figure some stuff out.
Yeah.
And there's active meditation.
And what if, let's say we get to the end of class and we get to Shavasana, where, we're all lying on our back, arms and legs extended, and the yoga instructor is saying, release the thoughts from your mind, just focus on the present, quiet your thoughts. So I guess in that instance, we are more in a meditative state. How can someone pull those thoughts back and kind of rein them in and just focus on being?
um, it's practice
Hmm.
and finding different ways that will get you there. Counting your
Hmm.
breath, doing a 4 count inhale and a 6 count exhale. That's a good way to like quiet all the chatter and just bring you
Oh,
to your breath. Just finding whatever little space. If you have to like go down your body and go, okay, I'm going to clench and then release my toes, I'm going to clench and then release my ankles, I'm going to clench and then release my calves. Whatever little thing will work with you in that moment, because remember, we're humans and every moment is different. So in that moment, have a little tool chest of things to help you with that. And always ask yourself again if you're supposed to be filtering through thoughts or if you're just letting the chatter take over, because I think that's important.
absolutely. And I think you bring up a really good point of having that toolbox of things to pull from, different breathing techniques or ways to focus. Right. When I was doing my 200-hour yoga training, the meditation piece was the hardest piece for me. My brain did not want to shut up. Right. And so there was one that I remember where I would have to lay on a bed and I would have to count. I would inhale, count one, exhale, count two, and I had to go up to 25 and back. And if I messed up, if I quote unquote messed up, which is not what they said, but that's just the terminology I'm using, if I lost my thoughts somewhere in there and I started to hear other things, I had to start over
Ooh.
because as yoga teachers, right, we need to be able to, meditation is a really big piece of it. And if we are going to guide others in meditation, it's something that we need to be able to do as well. Again, and I think that I will say with practice, like you said, practice is what made it easier in those moments where I
Yeah.
was able to eventually get all the way up to 25 and come back. And it took, some time, but like you said, we're all human. So those things are natural, they're going to happen. And meditation is a really intense practice for those who do it frequently. It can be very intense. So, depending on what meditation might look like for everyone, those kind of tools can look differently.
Yeah, absolutely. I always tell people to, match their breath to their thought. That's a
Mm.
good way to, the sound of waves. That's my go-to. That inhale is
Oh,
the
yeah.
wave receding, gathering strength, building, and then the exhale is that wave crashing back onto shore. It's releasing, and it's all powerful and cyclical and purposeful and beautiful. But
Yeah. And I think there's something too when when we do all the exercise, when we do all the work in a yoga class, right? So if we do a vinyasa class or any really class that we're doing, and then we do the shavasana at the end, and it's maybe, 5 minutes of resting your body. I'm sure you've experienced this too, but I feel like I took a nap. I feel restored. I feel my body is recovered. My mind is recovered.
Absolutely. It's a reset. It's just a total reset, you know? That's why the shavasana is so important.
Yeah. And I know people who hate
Yeah.
Shavasana and I know people who love Shavasana. Some people are like, 15 minutes, let's go, 50. And some people are like, I will do 1 minute and then I will be sitting up.
Yes, I'm a shavasana fan. I can shavasana out. You know?
All the way to sleep.
Right.
Well, let's say someone wants to get started with yoga or they want to focus on maybe one pose that is going to be really beneficial for them. What is one pose that you think everyone should be doing regularly and why?
Ooh.
I'll even give you two poses. You can pick two.
Okay. Legs up the wall. Legs up the wall
Oh,
is a
yeah.
super beneficial pose, accessible by pretty much anyone in the world. And you don't have to have a wall to do it. You know, it's just an imaginary wall. You can use a strap, you can use a towel, you can use anything, or use the wall. It's just it.
And what does that pose look like? If someone's going to get into it, how would they do that?
Lay on your back, and you can be in bed or on the floor, and then just bring your legs straight up in the air. So your legs are up and your back is on the ground. It reverses your blood flow. It just does so many good things for you, and it just seems like such a simplistic thing to do. But if you did that every day for 5 minutes, just the first 5 minutes that you wake up, even within 2 weeks, it's life changing. You know,
Oh,
it's just such a good pose, and anyone can do it. It's hard because you think yoga and you're like, that's the yoga pose that you're choosing. Yeah. But it really is. When you talk about beneficial yoga poses, that's it. And then the second one, I would go opposite of that and go straddle fold for the exact same reasons, but you incorporate balance, you incorporate strengthening your ankles, your knees, your hips. There's just a lot in straddle fold that you can do. Your spine, just all of the things. Definitely put your butt up against a wall and do straddle fold every single day if you have to.
yeah. And that when the feet are out wide and you're hinging forward at the hips and reaching straight down towards the
Yep,
floor.
point the toes out towards
Mhm.
the corners of the room or whatever. And you can use a block, you can use phone books, you can use a chair, and just slowly keep that back nice and flat and just bring the heart forward. Always lead with the heart. A lot of people like to lead with the chin or
Mhm.
lead with your heart.
I love that.
Yeah.
Those two are very good. I love a good forward fold. When I started doing yoga, my hamstrings are always tight. I'm very tall, so hamstrings and a lot of sitting for the majority of people in America are always very tight. So anytime doing a forward fold, a straddle fold always feels so good and just holding that position and just letting the muscles release kind of over time is just so
It's
good.
good for the hips too. It's hard to not sit here and just like stretch. And I need to add too that we're talking about studio, and you had brought up the park, and I wanted to piggyback off the park because my favorite yoga studio in the entire world that I've ever taught at is the beach. And
Mm.
there's a skill with it. You have to be mindful of where your voice is pointing, know where your face is pointing, because if you turn, your people can no longer hear you. But shavasana to the sound of waves at
Oh,
sunset,
so
there
good.
is no substitute. So,
Mm.
there's just so many possibilities with yoga. Stand up paddleboard,
Yeah.
love that. You want to be challenged, but not like trying to kick your butt, that'll still challenge you so intensely without making you feel like you're going to pass out.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, you might fall off the paddleboard, but
Yeah,
that's the fun of it.
it is the fun part.
At least the water will be there to catch you.
Right.
And, as we kinda talk about that too, as people age, as someone gets older, so let's say, for my listeners who might be a little bit older, the advantages to balance, like you said, maybe on a paddleboard, but even on the ground, doing the different balance poses, tree pose, eagle pose, anything where your, one foot is your base foot is what's holding you all together while you lift another leg and do something else with it, I think is so beneficial. And where we teach, we have an older population And my favorite thing is to always look at everyone while they're doing their balance poses and look at all the little muscles in the ankle as they try to adjust. And all I can think of is your ankles are getting stronger and your balance is going to be so much better. And that's just one of my favorite things.
Tree's a good thing to do when you're brushing your teeth too. You can easily just do
Oh,
tree.
yeah.
I always tell people too to like just roll up onto your tippy toes and then back down while you're brushing your teeth, because those rocker things in your ankles and feet, that's what we see when you see older people shuffling. That's why they don't have that rocking mobility anymore. So use it. Don't lose it.
I think that's a really good, if you take away anything, just rocking up onto those toes too while you're brushing your teeth. It's easy. You're already standing there for 2 minutes. So just do
Yeah.
some rock up onto the
You
toes,
put your
rock back onto the
fingertips
heel.
on the counter, if the hand not holding the toothbrush, so that, if balance is an issue. But yeah, it's good, and it strengthens the ankles, just like you were
Mhm.
saying. Like, it's good. See, you can do yoga anywhere.
It's true. It's true. And at any time, right?
Yeah.
Throughout the day. Well, Dani, the last segment of my show is called Absolution. So it's a time where we take a moment to maybe acknowledge something that might be toxic in the fitness industry and something that maybe you feel that folks can absolve themselves of any shame or guilt that they might be feeling around certain aspects of maybe the fitness or the yoga community. So what do you think?
I think that if we just kind of chilled out on the glorification of busy and got back to just being for a moment and just appreciate your surroundings just for a moment, that we're so output and efficiency and production and all of that, it governs us on a daily basis, even in the yoga world. So just stepping away from that glorification of being busy.
From the grind and the hustle, which I think is a really big part of our society right now. So I think that that's a really good absolution. Yeah, we can absolve ourselves from that. Well, Dani, if anyone wants to follow you or hear more from you, is there any way that they can reach out to you or find you on any social media?
I'm on Facebook, Dani Yoga, and I
Okay.
don't think there's another one.
Okay, I'll link that in my show notes so that they can reach you easily if they want to follow more about
Right
you.
on.
Well, this was a very uplifting conversation. I feel just having this conversation, I feel lighter. I feel it's like a breath of fresh air to talk about this. A lot of times we're talking about different physical fitness things, and yoga obviously is physical as well, but just being able to talk to you about this and bring awareness and hopefully more ideas and more confidence to people who might want to give it a try, even just the little things that you've mentioned, I think is really beneficial. And the goal of this podcast is to help people find one or two things that they can include into their lifestyle that they can do for a lifetime and make it sustainable. So I think you definitely shared some really good nuggets here. And thank you for joining me. If you all want to check out more episodes or if you want to be a part of my community, feel free to follow me on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. I'm everywhere under @CoachAbbyClapper if you want to check out more about some healthy wellness tips. Always happy to share those. And I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Talk Your Abs Off.